Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ali, and in this video I want to give you guys the exact revision schedule that helped me get 3 A stars in my A-levels maths, further maths, and physics. So that if it seems useful, you guys can apply it to your own exams, whether that's A-levels, GCSEs, or anything to be honest. I'm going to walk you through what my actual days looked like, how I structured revision over time, and what mattered way more than the number of hours I studied, and finally some tips and tricks as to how you can make sure you 100% stick to your revision schedule. So let's just get straight into it. So first let's go through the actual daily routine I went through every day, because that's what you guys came here for. So every day I used to get up pretty early, usually around 7 or 8 a.m. and genuinely didn't have much of a specific routine or ritual. I'd largely just get up, brush my teeth, and pretty much start working. Because this is the time that even now I feel like I can get the most amount of productive work done. So I'd get 1 or 2 hours out the way, depending on how I'm feeling. And then when I'd start getting hungry is when I'd take a break and get some food. 15, 20 minutes of chill time while I eat, and then I'm back at my desk to get ready and work for another 1, 2 hours. And then I'd take another break, have a snack, and then go to the gym. And going to the gym and then coming back and taking a shower, that whole process would take maybe an hour and a half. And then I'm back at my desk to study until dinner. And then after dinner, I'll do a little bit more if I can. But for the final 2 hours of the day, for the most part, it's pretty much just chill time. I think it's definitely good to have at least a general schedule that lets you prioritize what you need to do. I'll put on screen a rough outline for a routine for a given day, in case you guys want to think about how you should structure your days leading up to an exam. What I also found to be really, really useful was actually blocking out what I was going to be studying every hour of the day, so that I could particularly focus on incorporating spaced repetition. Okay, there's a lot of scientific research around spaced repetition and how effective it is for combating the forgetting curve, but nobody talks about the other benefits, which is that it makes studying way, way less boring. If you're interleaving the subjects that you're studying, you can be studying one subject, and then when you get bored, take a break from it and start studying another one. And then when you get bored of that one, you can go back to subject one, and you can keep switching so that the whole revision process doesn't get too boring studying the same thing for literal hours. I literally just use Google Calendar for this, nothing fancy. This just takes a lot of figuring out which subjects you're good at and which ones you need to spend more time on, because that's how you're going to want to organize your revision schedule. Just block out all the times where you're exercising, eating, and sleeping, and then the rest of the time you can block out dedicated study periods. Okay, now I want to let you guys in on what matters way more than what your study routine is and how many hours you study a day, and that's to focus more on solving as many practice problems as possible. I literally say this at least once in every single study video I make on this channel, but at the end of the day, it really is the only thing that actually matters. The more questions you do, the more familiar you're going to become with the type of questions that are going to come up in the exam, and the more active recall you're going to be doing. You need to literally be doing so much practice that after a while it gets really, really boring, and you feel like you're literally just applying the same methods again and again, but with a slightly different context of the questions. Maybe in maths there's just a couple different numbers, but largely it's just the same process. For my A-levels, I went through literally every single past paper there was, from every single exam board, from the old spec, from the new spec. And honestly, take advantage of this while you're doing an exam like GCSEs and A-levels, where there are tons and tons of past papers. It's practically unlimited. You can go on the internet and search a bunch of, even if you finished all the official ones, you can search for teacher-made past papers and questions that people like YouTubers have made. Because ever since I got to uni, the number of past papers we've had available has been way less, nothing compared to A-levels. So definitely take advantage of that. And there's other active recall techniques that are going to be a really, really good use of your time if you really have solved all the past papers that you can. As I said, I know how it feels to be sitting an exam that doesn't have that much official past paper and practice material, but you still have some other options. You can use AI, literally just go on ChatGPT, give it your notes, and ask for a bunch of practice questions in the style of some questions that you have been given officially from the teachers. A better option is going on a proper study website like Brain Brew Study, which gives you complete notes, flashcards, and practice questions that you can just spam until the content literally feels like it's second nature to you. I'll leave a link in the description. To be honest, those are the main ones. Just do a crazy number of practice questions and flashcards, and you'll be completely fine. I also used Notion a ton when I was studying. This video isn't sponsored, by the way, but I really liked their toggles in specific because they act like flashcards, but they're not really flashcards because you can actually get a zoomed out view and like get the bigger picture instead of just having a bunch of flashcards and only being focused on one at a time and not being able to see all the content at a glance. I'd literally just write the concept name and then under the toggle, give a couple bullet points, whether it's the definition or a couple key points that I need to remember, and then you just keep going through those. That was one of my favorite active recall techniques. All right, next key point for your revision schedule is to get rid of your phone when you're studying. I recommend everyone read a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport, not just to learn how to focus for when you want to study, but for when you want to get genuine, meaningful work done in any area of your life, which is an incredibly important life skill that's going to serve you way beyond your exams. The main idea is that the ability to focus deeply without distractions is becoming rarer and rarer, and your phone is basically the biggest enemy of that. I'd recommend, although I'll be honest, I don't do this all the time myself, to keep your phone in a completely different room than to the one you're studying in. Not just face down on your desk, not just thrown on your bed, but in a physically different room so that there's a way bigger barrier for you to be able to open it and check your notifications and doom scroll for another hour. Put it in a drawer, give it to a family member, just whatever works for you. Deep work is difficult, like it just is. If you want to be making serious progress with your exam grade goals, you're going to need to be taking proper breaks to reset your brain and genuinely maximize your cognitive output for the next study session. Which takes us on to the next point that I want to talk about, which is really, really important. I want you guys to still make sure you're prioritizing your fitness throughout the exam periods or the study periods. Keep active at least for half an hour, maybe an hour a day. So I actually made it a habit that when I was doing GCSEs and A-levels, I made a mistake that you definitely shouldn't make, which was that I would go through weeks of not going to the gym at all and not exercising because I was using the excuse of studying all day. And I genuinely was sometimes, some days, not leaving my room for pretty much the whole day. And I genuinely don't recommend that for anybody. Because my advice is that if you're a student, you're probably going to be sitting a lot of exams in your life, and you just can't afford to keep taking those months or couple weeks even long breaks from the gym or whatever fitness activity you like doing, because that's just not going to be sustainable. You need to figure out a way to fit in exercise, to block it out in your calendar if you have to do that, even if it is with just a slightly lower frequency. Not only is it going to be so much better for your long-term health, it's going to make you feel way better when you come back to study if your break is actually going outside and getting some exercise instead of just scrolling reels for an hour. All right, I also think that one of the best ways to make sure that you stick to your revision schedule is to, I know it sounds weird, but to try and make studying fun. Trust me, it's easier than you think. The first way I like to do this is by studying with friends. Now you might be thinking, that's literally the opposite of being productive. I'm just going to be messing around with my friends instead of actually studying. But for me, it's been the complete opposite. If you just find even 1 or 2 friends to study with, try sitting down and get started with some work. And for me, it actually made it way more fun, and I ended up being able to study for longer. Mainly because when other people around me are working and I don't want to be, I'll still feel really lazy and just end up doing work anyway. And the same goes in the other direction. So you and your friends get benefits out of it. And if you've chosen people who are doing the same subjects as you, what I really recommend doing is testing each other. Not only does it make studying feel way less lonely, but that's another active recall technique itself. If one of you doesn't understand something and the other one needs to explain it, that's good for both of you, especially the explainer, because you're using what's called the Feynman technique, where whatever you can't explain properly to your friend, you don't understand it yourself properly, and you need to go through your notes again and try and learn it. The next tip I have for really sticking to your routine is to have a workspace. So this is genuinely just where I spend majority of my time when I'm studying. I very occasionally go to a library when I'm getting a little bit bored of being in the same space for a really long time, but for the most part, this is my workspace. Everything is exactly the way I need it so that I can just sit down and start working with as little friction as possible. I also just work better when I have the bigger screen, so I can have a bunch of stuff open and really lock in. But how you set up your workspace is completely personal to you. The next tip I've got for you is that revision starts the night before. Whenever I finish studying for a given day, I always look back on all the content that I covered and see if there were any gaps, see if I missed something, and then I'll write that down for the to-do list for tomorrow. Let's say the day's over and I haven't quite finished going through all the flashcards for particle physics or something. Then I'll leave the flashcards open on my computer so that I can wake up the next morning and I don't even need to think about anything. I open my computer and they're right there ready for me to look through. No time wasted, I can just go through them and get them out the way. Same goes for if you're studying a bunch of content from a textbook. Even doing something as small as just leaving the book open on the correct page on your desk so that when you wake up, it's right there in front of you and you can just get started. But that's about it for all the tips I've got for you guys in this video. Hopefully there was something actionable in there that you can apply to your own revision schedule. Huge thanks for watching. Let me know if there's any other study videos you guys want to see, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.